Hey, welcome back to Living in Minnesota. My name is Joe Carmack, and it's time for my favorite video of the year, and that's going to be our 2022 full year real estate market update. So we're going to talk about how we started, how we finished, and what some projections are for 2023. We will talk real estate prices. We're going to talk about how many homes sold. We're going to talk about how fast they're selling, if it's a buyer's market or a seller's market. We'll track interest rates and a whole bunch more right now. All right, let's get right into it. I'm gonna start you off with your month supply of inventory. You know this graph, you've seen it a million times, I'm sure, but basically as low as we are on here, the lower we are, the more seller favored, the more middle of the road or above would be the more buyer favored we are. So last month, I'm gonna show you this a few different ways, but we'll start with in December, we ended at 1.4 month supply of inventory. Okay, now let me add to this for you the past several years. So basically what you can look at right here, 2021, 0.9, 2020, 1.1. So let me break it down a little bit more simple for you. Here's basically how the last several years have gone. You can see we weren't as bad of a seller's market kind of back in the 2017 timeframe. Then with the pandemic and everything, that kind of shoved us down further. That's why inflation's so crazy. That's why rates were so low. And then they had to get pushed up, which we'll finish talking about rates as well, what those did. But you can see we did start to curve back. That's a very, very good thing because we've just been way too seller favored for quite some time. So if we zoom out, it's not a typo. It was 1.4 months is that rolling monthly number. If we do the 12-month rolling average number, however, it's 1.5 months. I don't honestly know why there's a difference, but it's what the data says. And here's where you can see a better example of how we've started to shift out of that. So we really bottomed out hard, and fortunately, that's coming back, right? Buyers were miserable, tons of multiple offers, very, very fast and aggressive market. And fortunately, I'm loving to see this number come up. This isn't a sign that the sky is falling, which will be kind of a recurring theme as it's been the last 12 months. The sky is not falling. The market isn't crashing in the Twin Cities, but we are seeing this trend moving in the right direction. One thing I do want to point out is if we're to get to a buyer's market, you've heard me talk a million times before, it's always between, always between 4 to 6 months supply is balanced. However, something super interesting I just heard, I'm not sure if I've just known this wrong my entire career or what, but they are now calling it 6 months to be the benchmark that we want to hit. And even one of the reports I saw from NAR was saying they want it to be between 6 and 7 months supply of inventory. So, I mean, that seems so far out of anything we're used to in today's market. I can't even imagine being at 7 months supply right now. But to keep an eye on, when's it going to be balanced? When's the market going to shift? Is this a big significant difference that we've seen this year? The answer is we're not even remotely close to being a balanced market yet. We are going in the right direction, but even if we just want to call it 6 to be our target as month supply, we're still less than a third of that number. So how's that number going to be affecting our sale prices? Let's take a look at that next here. Median sale price in the Twin Cities last month, $348 to wrap up December. So this is actually a really, really encouraging number. Again, we're going in the right direction with that one. This is a super important graph that I had shown you. So the last I did 2019, we skipped 2020 because of the pandemic and everything is so goofy. We went to 2021. This is the number that I've been looking to see. You can see that 8.4 is a drop from January to June is when we went up 14.1. From June to December, we came down of that percent 8.4. So this is really what people are hoping to see. We were hoping to see, I expected that number actually to be a little bit less of a drop. So we did drop more from our peak than we had hoped for. And if you're hearing in the news, prices are falling, everything's going crazy, the sky's falling, that's actually not the case. So let me show you what's actually happened when you adjust. This is taking into account seasonality, right? Here's what our actual numbers have done the last several years. And I did add back in 2020 for us here so we can get a better, if it's a year to year, that's a little bit more accurate picture of what happened. This is from January to December, 2019 up 7.7, 13.7, and then 10.13 last year. So if the sky was falling and prices were going down, well, they didn't. We were up 4.52%. That'll be our official number for 2022. Homes went up about 4.5%. over the last 12 months. So that number is actually lower than I expected to be. I figured we'd be in the 5, 6, 7 range. So 4.5 to me is actually super encouraging that we only went up that much, okay? The historic average is somewhere around 4%, and so we're still above that number. So be aware of that. And that's also not a negative number. A lot of people are calling and they're like, well, I'm just gonna wait for prices to go down. Well, they haven't yet. That's getting us closer to even just being a flat, breaking even, closer than I expected, less appreciation this year than I expected. I think the reason people are assuming that is one of two things. They're either hearing from a national standpoint, someone on TikTok or whatever is saying, oh, look, prices are down 20% in Seattle or whatever their number is. That's fine. That may be what's going on there. It's not even remotely accurate to what's happening here. And then the second thing is because people have been seeing 13% up, 10% up, and now it's only 5%, less than 0.5%, less than half of what we saw last year. And so it's just that the market doesn't feel as aggressive. We also just came out of the slowest part of our year, October, November, December, where the fewest number of new homes are going on the market, the fewest number of buyers are out looking. And so because of that, sellers are coupling that with rates going up and things they're hearing, bad information in the news, and they're assuming that prices are coming down more than they actually are. A couple of metrics we watched that were less significant to me we'll kind of gloss through, but days on market. Some people are thinking homes are sitting on the market forever. We started at 11 days on market and we've ended at 14. That's really not a major shift there. And then just the number of homes for sale, this one did come up. So we like that number coming up. There's been so few homes that are currently active on the market, which is what this number tracks. And we're seeing that number come up. That means buyers are having a few more options and they're not having to move quite as quickly, which we really like to see. However, something that when I first saw this is the number of closed sales that are happening every month. And this is the rolling 12-month number. You can see we started December at 66,000 and we ended with 53,000. So that's a huge drop. When I first saw this number, I was thinking, oh gosh, that's horrible to see that huge of a drop. And I'm not sure it's great. But then I started thinking about it a little bit more. And I think this number, to be honest, is what a lot of people are referencing to point out that the market is shifting. There's no question that the market's shifting. But the number of people buying and selling is what this reflects here. I think this is a couple of things. First of all, I think this is actually going to affect real estate agents more than it's going to affect the consumer. I just saw a report. I should have pulled it up. I didn't. But NAR, National Association of Realtors, was projecting, I think it was 1 million. Don't quote me. I could be totally off. But it was a huge number of real estate agents that are actually going to get out of the business in the next couple of years because the number of units selling is going down. That could be the average agent only sells like 12. So for them to actually make a living gets harder and harder when there's fewer homes to sell. So the consumer, I don't think really cares about that. And I don't think you're going to be really affected by the number of sales happening across the US. The second thing I noticed when I was really trying to dissect this a little bit, right? Let me get my little brushy tool out here. This was, the early 2000s, right before the last major recession. That's when the market was just on fire. And unfortunately, I can only go back this far. Our system doesn't go any further back. But that was the market on fire when there was a ton of homes selling, right? This was, again, when our market was on fire for a second time, right? So you can see if we're going to call this normal, which I don't think it is, I'll kind of make an argument for that later. But if that was normal, you can see we just had a huge spike. It started going up. So this is very funny to me, actually. This is December 2019, 60,000 homes being sold. There, we started to ramp up. This right here is March and April of 2020. You might remember a little pandemic thing we went through. The market went, oh gosh, can we even buy a house? And, a bunch of people pushed pause. And then as soon as we could, they're like, screw it. And they just did it anyways. And they made a move. So the pandemic actually really fueled the number of home selling. But I think we can all see, that was a real anomaly, kind of a major outlier in the market. So how many is going to be a normal number of homes to sell? To be honest, I don't have the answer to that one. I've never heard a local legitimate source saying like what that perfect number of homes selling a year is, but let's just guess. All right. So if this was kind of that market on fire, this wasn't nothing going on kind of because of all the foreclosures. So maybe 50,000, somewhere in here is probably maybe a target number. Again, I'm just ballparking, but If that's the case, looking at our numbers, I think that could be realistic for the next 12 months or so. Maybe we'll stick around the 50,000 mark. I'm going to keep my eye on this one because the greater economy needs sales to be happening. You know, that's obviously what fuels the new construction, and then that's manufacturing, and that's lumber and all the different things that are affected by that. So the greater economy wants this number to keep going on, even if it doesn't affect an individual buyer or seller that much personally. Finally, let's end you with rates. So two different things I want you to see on here. Basically, we ended the year at about 6.5% for your regular 30-year mortgage, and we started at almost half that. It was about 3.22. So rates are up pretty major significantly. Let's zoom out a little bit, as we've always got get a little perspective. And actually in this case, there isn't like some wonderful thing that, oh, it's actually not that bad. No, I mean, rates are just high. They did come down from their peak, but they're still high overall. What I expect from this, and this is another one I haven't really seen a real good concrete answer because I don't think it really exists, but the speculation out there, generally the gist of it seems to be people are thinking that rates will stay about where they are. They might go up a little bit more. I wouldn't be surprised if they do go up a little bit more, but I suspect that we'll end the year kind of around where we are. That's primarily just gut and intuition than an actual like data source that I've heard from. If you've heard of something, let me know in the comments. I'd be certainly interested to see an article to something more concrete. What do we think is going to happen next year? I don't really like predictions. I will just keep referencing back to the Economist report that I had referenced a couple months ago. 100 of the top economists from the US were surveyed, and the average nationally that they gave was something like 3, 4, 5% positive appreciation over the next 5 years. So with that being the case, we do expect other markets will be going down, which in the Midwest, we're a little more insulated from those extremes. So while other markets are going down, I would still expect us to come up. So if they were averaging 3, 4, 5%, I would say that extrapolates to the Midwest being a little bit higher of an appreciation and not going negative. In any case, none of them really said numbers were going negative. I have seen other reports that seem less legitimate to me that have put negative numbers to it, but locally, I think we're sitting okay on sale prices. The thing I do think is different from where we're at now, though, to where we're at with the last major recession is the question's always in people's minds, is there a bubble that's gonna pop? We've got to remember, we don't have a lot of the conditions that created the last problem. So the last recession, we had bad lending practices. We had a ton of people that were set to be foreclosed on. We currently have neither. And I saw an article that was like, you know, people delinquent on their mortgages is up 300%. Okay, well, if 10 people are delinquent in their mortgage and it goes to 30, well, then all of a sudden, you know, there's 3 times as many, but that's not a significant number. And the actual number of foreclosures happening is almost 0 right now. The number of people looking for jobs, or the number of jobs available compared to the number of people that need one, is incredibly positive. The unemployment's super low. And then the people that have equity in their home is through the roof because of the price appreciation that we've seen in the last several years. So people are not getting foreclosed on, and there's not a bunch of ARMs or different loan products that are causing people to have to sell or to get foreclosed on. So since we don't have any of that, what do we have this time around? We have a ton of inflation and we have rates that are going up. So the reality is, though, we can't really control bad loans that had already been written. We can't really stop the foreclosure process, right? Like that was a freight train coming down the tracks that we couldn't stop. However, now where we're at, we've got inflation. It's difficult to get under control. It's obviously very annoying for everybody, but with rates cranking up, eventually that's supposed to curb the inflation. Once inflation stops going up like it is, then they can stop with rates and they can just overnight flip rates back down if needed to. So it's a lot more controllable. Not that we can just control inflation, but we can cause rates to change, which will affect inflation. That'll eventually come down, and then they can bring rates down with that in tandem. So that's where we're at in 2023. If you're thinking about making a move, I'd love to be your real estate agent in the Twin Cities. My name is Joe Carmack. You can find all my contact info in the description down below. Make sure to subscribe so you can check out our monthly market updates, home tours, and so much more.